Hey guys, sorry for the huge wait on this one. We have a lot of important events going on in Australia at the moment. They all have a Worlds invite attached to them for the winner. So I've spent most of my FF time preparing for those with like deck building, deck testing, etc. But I have been working on this periodically. Another small reason why it took a little bit longer is because the new account on Twitter that we're supposed to tweet instead of Kageyama now, they take a little bit longer to reply, especially when it comes to asking follow-up and clarification, especially if they, maybe misunderstood the first question. But they have got back to me on this, and most of the questions I've been asking them have revolved around the change of control, which is the new mechanic in Opus 6, so that would probably be the most important part of this video. So starting with Leon and Kane, these are like the self-contained control changes. Firstly, I should talk about summoning sickness. That's not an official term, that's a player-invented term, but we use it to talk about the rule where if a forward or backup hasn't been under your control since your active phase, then it can't attack or use a dull ability. And that applies for a forward that's changed control as well. So in the case of Leon, if you play a category 2 character to take your opponent's Leon, that Leon won't be able to attack that turn because it hasn't been under your control since your active phase, even though it was on the field. Now, if a character would change control to a field that it's illegal to be on, for example, there's another character with that name already in play on that field, then it does change to that field and they both go to the break zone. That is not like entering play. So as we know, if a character tries to enter the field and it would be illegal for it to be there, then it just doesn't enter, it stays wherever it is. The reason this is different is because changing control isn't actually entering the field, it's not leaving or entering, it's just changing which side it's on. So it's not protected, so to speak, by the rules and mechanics around like playing illegal characters, etc. So yeah, Leon's a funny one actually. So if one player has Leon and the other player plays their Leon, who is a 2 character himself, they're both going to trigger. So the Leon they play is going to trigger its own effect to try and change to the opponent's side, and the other Leon will see the 2 character and try and change side as well. They don't just swap because that's not how the effects work, they stack to each other, and the first one to resolve will resolve, go to the other field, and then they'll both go to the break zone because they will both exist on the same side of the field at one point. Now Shuyin is the one card so far that can take anything. Effectively. So I'm just going to use an example for this one. So a character you take with Shuyin, so say this Shuyin takes this Viking, as we know, as I said before, it's not leaving or entering the field or anything, so no one will draw when it takes that Viking. And that Viking won't be able to attack, like I talked about before, because it hasn't been under your control since your active phase. If you use your Renoa on that Viking, now there's going to be a few things that happen. Firstly, it'll leave the field, and then it will enter the field again, and this will actually be the result. It'll enter the opponent's field, and both players will draw 1. Now, to explain this, characters with leave the field abilities, or that includes when sent from field to break zone, they trigger for the player that controlled the character when it died, not necessarily its owner. So, in this case, Viking left the field, so you owned it, so you controlled it when it left the field, so you draw a card. But it's out of play now, it enters the field, so when a character enters the field, by default, it enters on its owner's side. In this case, like, it doesn't remember where it came from or anything like that, so we think of Renoa as like a flicker, like, leaders comes back kind of thing, but the mechanics don't, that's not seen as a mechanic by the rules. Like that's just how we think of it. That's not actually recognized by the rules. So all the rules see is a forward has left the field, and then a forward has entered the field. And by default, forwards enter the field on their owner's side. So in this case, you draw for the leave the field effect because you controlled Viking when it left the field, but your opponent will draw for its enter effect because it entered on their side of the field. Funny thing with Vanille, like I said, sent from field to break zone, that'll still trigger for the player who controlled it when it died. So if you control your opponent's Vanille and if she dies, you actually get to decide whether to use the ability or not. If you do use it, you'll remove a Hecaton Chair from your deck, but then it will revive to your opponent's field because they're the owner. It's in the break zone, so it's going to enter onto their side. So obviously you won't do that. You will just say, I'm not using the effect. But at least it means that you get the option. So if they kill their Vanille while you control it, it'll just stay in the break zone. They won't get to revive it themselves. Now, onto some generic rulings. Garland. Now, his special ability, Round Edge, choose one forward, break it, deal 5,000 damage to all the forwards opponent controls. The first part of that, break it, cannot break Vincent or Istola. These characters have the protection effect, cannot be broken by opposing summons or abilities that don't deal damage. Round Edge is an ability that does deal damage, so it should be able to break Vincent and Stola even with the first part. However, that is incorrect text on Vincent and Stola. It's, I guess, a bad translation. That effect is intended to work as, this character cannot be broken except by the rules process that breaks a character with damage equal or greater than its power. So, the first part of Round Edge Break It will actually not break Vincent and Stola, even though their text suggests that it could. Although, of course, the 5,000 damage will still break them if that's enough damage to kill them. Illusionist. It must attack this turn if possible. Effectively means you cannot exit your attack phase, so you can't go from either damage step or attack step to main phase 2 while that forward is currently capable of attacking. Against forwards that can attack more than once in the same turn, they will have to attack as many times as possible. For example, a legendary Bartz that has 2 attacks, he will have to attack twice if he's the target of Illusionist. Sid 11. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 card among them to your hand, put the others in the break zone. You don't have to show your opponent the card you add. That look at the top 3, that is you only, you look at them. Of course, they'll see the 2 that go to the break zone, but they don't see the card that you add. Kuja, his second ability, that is an action ability. However, he is in the break zone, you don't control him. So Emperor doesn't stop that second ability. It says characters your opponent controls cannot use action or special abilities. Shock Trooper, very similar to Raoban. Its effect has exactly 1 target. If that target becomes illegal, then the whole effect fizzles. So if when Shock Trooper tries to resolve, the opponent's forward is no longer in play, then Shock Trooper won't break himself. However, if when he tries to resolve, he himself is no longer in play, it will still break the target if that target's still in play. And I just want to clarify with Shock Trooper, his effect, it triggers on attack declaration, and if he dies, that's the end of that combat. It doesn't, you don't go to block step, you don't go to damage step or anything. Everything that happens with Shock Trooper will happen at attack declaration. Zidane, his second ability, this is actually the correct text, but physical copies have the wrong text. They all say choose 1 character with the second ability, and that is wrong. This is the correct errata. Choose 1 wind character. You can only activate wind characters with Zidane's second ability. And another thing I want to clarify, those 2 auto abilities are separate. So when he attacks, the third ability will trigger. You look at their hand, say you take a forward from their hand, that'll resolve. Then his second ability will trigger and you choose a wind character. Of course, you can stack to that yourself. So one thing I've had happen a few times is when I've attacked with Zidane, triggered his ability, looked at their hand, taken a forward, and I've said, now with his ability, I'm targeting Sid 2, and then I'm going to stack my Sid 2, search, and then Sid 2 will reactivate. And people have said, no, you can't, you've already looked at my hand, you're already resolving the effect, you can't use Sid 2 in the middle of that. But no, they are separate abilities, so you can actually stack to that separately from the discarding effect. Leatherford. His second ability, choose 1 forward during this turn, the next damage it deals to a forward becomes 0 instead. If you choose a forward, and that resolves, and the next damage that forward would deal is AoE damage, so Barbarisha, for example, or like Royal Ripeness, or something like that, it will prevent all of the damage from that one ability. So if the forward is going to deal damage to multiple characters at exactly the same time, then it will stop the damage to all of them. Riku's Escape. Remove Riku from the battle. You can only use this ability when Riku is in battle. Now, being in battle is defined as blocking or being blocked. So you'll be using this in block step. When it resolves, Riku will no longer be treated as attacking or blocking, which means that any effects that specifically affect an attacking or blocking forward will no longer affect her. If she was part of a party, the other forwards are still attacking, but she's not part of it. If she was blocking or attacking alone, then there will be no damage calculation. Even if she was blocking, the attack still won't deal player damage because a blocker was declared, even though it's not blocking anymore. So it's still kind of like a phantom block, so to speak. She stays on the field the entire time. This doesn't like remove her from the field in any way, and she won't be able to attack again or anything like that. But yeah, it's intended to be used as a way to avoid combat tricks and specific effects that hit a blocker or an attacker, for example, Madius. Kate Sith. This is similar to Ilua. it actually cancels the entire effect. It doesn't just stop the effect on the targeted forward. So if your opponent uses like Hades, for example, which targets a forward and a backup, and you respond with Kate Sith, it'll actually cancel the entire effect. Hades won't still affect the backup or anything. Cactuar. If you're paying with a backup that generates more than 1 CP, so like Shantoto or Cosmos, for example, who can generate, you know, 6 different CP, if you pay with Cactuar with one of those, you have to choose which CP you're providing. You can't just say, I'm paying all, like, Rainbow CP with that. So you'll only get one instance of 4,000 damage out of the Rainbow backup, so to speak. You can't just get the full damage just from paying with a backup that generates all the CP. The other thing is, if you cast this for free, then it will deal 0 damage. So if you cast it with like the new Legend Minwu, for example, or Agito Maragito, because you're not paying any CP for it, it'll do 0 damage. Titan. This is just a text clarification. In one way, you could read it as it gains 2,000 power at the end of turn, and then at the end of turn it deals the damage. But no, it gives the buff and deals the damage all at resolution of Titan. So while Titan's resolving, buffs the forward and then deals damage to the other forward. Edia. She can target another copy of Edia in the break zone. She can even target another copy of this Edia. However, she can't target the copy using the ability can't get itself back, because it's not in the break zone when it activates its own ability, because you choose targets before you pay the cost. So if you have 2 of them, so you have one in break zone, one in field, you can like swap them, so to speak, for whatever reason. But if you just have this Edia, you can't just break her for no reason and bring the same one back. Zidane. This is like White Tiger, Lassie, Nimbus. You can pay it with Shantoto, because Shantoto actually becomes all the elements, or it has all the elements by its own ability. But Cosmos isn't a lightning backup, even though it can produce lightning CP. So yeah, you can pay it with Shanto, but not with Cosmos Chaos. Ninja. This is just a little interaction thing. It doesn't work the way you would hope with Heroic Lulu, because when it enters, it has to have a legal target when it enters to trigger the ability. So you can't say, for example, play Ninja and break it with Lulu to deal 10,000 damage to a forward that wasn't already damaged. From Elder, when used with Legendary Barts, the one that gains the jobs of the forwards you control, it will count him, because when he gains the job the moment Fremelda hits the field, so when her ability resolves, he will be treated as a Sword Saint because Fremelda's in play, and so it'll do 8,000 damage, assuming they're both still in play when it resolves. Ramu, you can't, or you can choose a forward with the Dullet and the 7,000 damage effect, but the 7,000 damage effect will fizzle, because Ramu will dull it first, and then it will be an illegal target for the damage effect, so it won't deal that. Also, while we're talking about this, I should mention that Glacial Labolas, there's an old ruling in my Opus 5 ruling video that's actually changed since then. At the time, you could use, if you used Glacier on an already dull forward, and you used the Dullet and the 7,000 damage effects, even if your opponent activated that forward, because Glacier resolved in order, it would dull it again, and then deal the 7,000 damage to it, because it's dull when that effect tries to resolve. But now that's changed. Now, all the targets are effectively checked twice. They are checked during the resolution of the effect, as is the case with Ramu here, but also as the entire effect begins resolving. So in the case of Glacier, if you target an already dull forward with the Dullet and the deal 7,000 damage effect, and that forward gets activated in response, it will, as it begins resolving, it'll check the targets and see that it's active and see that it's no longer a legal target for the 7,000 damage. So even though it will be dull by the time that 7,000 damage effect would resolve, it already determined that it wasn't a legal target for that, so it won't deal at 7,000 damage, although of course it will still dull it. Astrologian, reveal the top card of your deck. That is revealed at resolution. That's just the same as Common Gilgamesh and Kate Sith. There's some older cards. Same thing again though. Yuna, when she enters the field, either play or search Gullwings. You choose which of those to do at resolution. So when she enters, she just triggers. You don't have to tell your opponent whether you're searching or playing on. Then when it resolves, that's when you decide whether you play one or search one. And I think that's all. thank you very much for watching. There's a couple of weird ones here, but it's a smaller set, and we've seen a lot of mechanics and stuff these days from other sets. So I hope that's informative and useful. Again, apologies for the massive delay on the release of this. But yeah, I'm hoping to get out a few more videos fairly soon as well, because I know there's been a big delay. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching as usual. Thanks for being patient. Appreciate all the support, and have a good one.